Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Lockdown Tuesday once again. I'm glad that you joined. Today we're going to talk about the topic of what language are you speaking? But before we start, because it's a time for all of us after dinner, it's going to get your cup of tea, your latte, your cold. I got cold brew with milk. It's very strong, but it's good. I think. It's from After Black. I'm sure those of you in Malaysia know where that is, right? So I hope that everyone's had a wonderful week. It is another beginning. It's Tuesday night, 8 p.m. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the last two Lockdown Tuesdays. And today, we're going to have a very, very interesting story. Once again, we're going to get a story through the Bible, and we're going to see how it is relevant and it affects this time right now. So this week, we're going to talk about a very interesting story that a lot of you who go to church will know this. Some of you who don't, you might not know. But the story is just a really good story, and we can learn so many things from it. The story is called the Tower of Babel. Now, what happens at this time is, it's after the flood at the time of Noah. The flood is done. Noah comes out. He begins to multiply, and his descendants, go out and start spreading all over the earth. Now, there's this one group of people. They go to a place called Shinar, and they settled there. And what they start to do is they start to build a tower, and their goal is to make the tower reach all the way to the sky. To me. Right? So what happens here is they're building it, and all of a sudden, God looks down. Like, you know how big this tower is going to be. Like, what's the tallest tower in the world right now? It's the one in Dubai called the Burj Khalifa. And it's like over 8 kilometers high. Okay? It's like 830 meters. It's crazy. Okay? So there they are trying to build the Burj Khalifa. Well, of course, not going to be that high. And as they're building it, God comes down. He looks and he says, hey, what's going on? And he wants them to stop building this tower. So what does he do? He confuses their language so that they couldn't understand each other. And then after the language was confused, they all scattered all over the earth. And this is kind of one of those stories where it's like it's kind of like a mythology story where people say, and this is how language made it all over the earth. Okay? So this, that's the basic story, the basic premise. If you go to the Bible, it's in Genesis chapter 11, only 9 verses. It's really short. You can go ahead and take a look at it. They were all speaking one language, and then God confuses a language, and then they scatter all over the earth. And this is how language came to be. So this is a very interesting story, and I really, really like this story because even though it's so short, it's only 9 verses, the depth and the wisdom we can learn from it, there's just so much involved. Right? So people are always saying that, hey, this story is how language came to be. Now, there's 2 things I really want you to think about because people keep talking about, language came from this story. And this story is about 4,300 years ago. And the thing that we all need to know is this. Even before this story, because this is dated at 4,300 years ago, the earliest writings we found, and you know that writings came later than speaking, like speaking language. The 4 earliest writings come before this story. So there's already multiple languages before the story of the Tower of Babel, right? So you have Egyptian, Sumerian, Canaanite, Akkadian, and just looking at these 4 languages, they all in written form existed before the Tower of Babel actually happened. So in your mind, you're going to be like, wow, well, I thought they're all speaking the same language. How come there's like already 4 languages that are written, right? Just written language are existing even before that time. So what we have to understand is this story, that's the first thing I want you to think about is this story the way that is this really about language? The language that you're thinking about. Because today's lecture is called, What Language Are You Speaking? So if you think about language, a lot of people are thinking like, wait, isn't language like Korean and Chinese and Japanese and English and Russian? Aren't those languages? Yes, they are. But the further you go in the past, the less languages there are. And on top of it, the languages is kind of, when you look at the definition of a language, it's just a method of communication, whether it's speaking or writing, okay? Now, the thing you have to realize is why this story is so important for all of us, because the Bible is not just a book of knowledge. It's not academics, right? These are academics you learn at school. Academics are things that you learn on your own time or at school or at work, skills, experiences. But the reason why the Bible is relevant to every person, because it's not the book of academics, it is a book of wisdom. And this is why, regardless if you're spiritual, if you have faith or not, everyone can learn from these stories. So let's go into this story of the Tower of Babel and the story of language, God confusing all their languages, and poof, they scatter all over the earth. We're going to take a look at the first verse today, which is Genesis chapter 11, verse 6, and this is going to be our first hint of what is it really talking about right now. It says, the Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language, they've begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Okay, so you got to listen to this carefully, right? If as one people speaking the same language, they've begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do is impossible. Now, what does that mean? When you look at this verse, you have to understand that there's something more important than language here. If as one people they speak, then nothing's impossible. It's actually not talking about language. It's actually talking about unity, right? It's not talking about speaking the same language. The core point here is nothing is impossible because they speak like they have the same language. You see, the issue that we're dealing with here is not a language issue. It is a unity issue. Now, how do you know that? Why? Like Sky, why would you say it's a unity issue? Think about this. Do you think people are unified just because they speak the same language? Let me give an example. China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, all speak Chinese. Are they unified? No, right? And even if you think about here in Malaysia and Singapore, just because the Chinese people in Singapore and Malaysia speak Chinese, are we unified? And the answer is no. Just because you speak the same language does not necessarily mean you are unified. Like, think about this. What about marriage? Shouldn't all marriages then, that people, if the husband and wife both speak the same language, shouldn't they be unified? Shouldn't they? If that's the case, if that's what we're saying is, if you speak the same language, then nothing's impossible and you can do whatever you want to do. And the answer is no. How many people actually get divorced? Like, let me just tell you about China. China's in a crazy situation right now because they're the first ones to come out of lockdown, right? They said that there is a major spike in divorces after the Wuhan lockdown, it lifted in Wuhan. So there's this one lawyer that said, yeah, in the past, I would always be dealing with divorces because one was cheating on the other. But now, they had, you know what the reasons why they're wanting divorce? One is too much screen time. Number two is not sharing the chores enough. These are the reasons. It's really weird, right? But then if we go by our logic before is because you speak the same language, you guys can do anything, that doesn't make any sense. Marriage, just last year in China, 4.15 million couples divorced last year. Just last year alone. And it's going to be even higher. Why? Because we just went into quarantine, and what are people thinking? Like, people are hating each other because they're stuck in the same place for like 76 days, right? 76 days with this person that you thought you loved, but you're just arguing and fighting, and you just, it's just too much for you. So it kind of breaks, it breaks the logic that just because we speak the same language, we are one, that we're unified. What am I saying? I'm saying this story is not about language, or not the language that we think in our minds. This is about unity. Let's take a look at Genesis chapter 11, verse 7. This is also very interesting. Genesis chapter 11, verse 7 says, the next verse says, come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. And this becomes an even bigger point. Why? Because the language was confused so they don't understand each other. So my question to you is, do people not understand each other only because of language? So if I speak Chinese and you speak Russian, then is that the only time we don't understand each other? And the answer is no. There are many times in our lives between us and our friends, us and our family, right? Us and people at work, where we do misunderstand each other and we do speak the same language. Language is not the issue that we're thinking about here. This is why we're talking about what language are you speaking. It's not a language issue. It's a unity issue. And what is the core of a unity issue? is not language. What is it? It's here. The issue that we deal with in life when it comes to language, speaking to each other, becoming one, is not a speaking problem. It is a heart problem. You see, the thing we have to understand is there are many languages in the world. I heard there's over 7,000 different languages in the world. But you know what? When we go to the Olympics, people don't speak the same language and they're fine. They're fine, right? They're happy together. They hug when they score a goal. They high-five each other. They buy food for each other. It's fine. They drink beer, whatever it is. It's okay even though they don't speak the same language. But then you have people who are married, people who live in the same country. Look at America right now with politics. It's crazy. It's a crazy divide in America. But they all speak the same language. Let me give an example, okay? Why do people fight, divorce, kill, murder, whatever it is? It's always because of this. It's not because of this. So let me give you an example here. Let's say there's a school project, because I know a lot of you are in school. So let's look at a school project where it's a science project, and I see this on TV all the time, where in high school you have to make, I never did this myself, you have to make like a volcano out of plaster, and then you make it erupt and stuff like that. I'm not sure if you guys have done this. Is that in Malaysia? They do that here too? Well, yeah, so you do it. It's a volcano project, right? So let's say there's 4 people. There's Johnny, Cindy, Steve, and Lisa. Okay? And you're all in one team, and you're here making this volcano. Okay? You want to make it explode. So Johnny comes in, Johnny's like, hey man, you know what? Let's make a volcano, but I want to make it brown. And then Cindy's like, I don't think so, because I totally want it pink, because pink is like my favorite color, and brown is the color of poo, right? So he's like, oh, and then they're arguing, and then all of a sudden, Steve comes in and says, no, man, I don't like the color of poo, and I don't like the color pink, so I totally want blue, because blue is a man color. And Lisa comes in the end, and she's like, I don't care. You guys do whatever you want. So what happens is, if they were united, then what is the most important thing is just completing it. A color is just a detail. And if everyone had the same heart of just completing that volcano, what would happen? Hey, come on, I really want a brown one. You really want a brown one? But I want a pink one. What do you want to do? Well, as long as we finish it. So it's just rock, scissors, paper. Okay, right, and we're done. But if people don't understand each other's hearts, we've seen this happen all the time. No, I want brown. If you're not going to get brown, there's no way I'm going to make a pink volcano. No way. And she's like, well, no. Cindy's like, no, I'm not going to do a brown one. And you know what? I don't want your stupid blue one either, Steve. It has to be pink. And then one says blue, pink, brown. Lisa's like, shut up. And then what happens in the end? Poof. They scatter. Fine. Make your own. See what happens. Do your own. Lisa, come with me. We're going to make a brown one. And everyone scatters. Why do people scatter? We do it all the time in life. In life, it's the same thing. When we get into arguments, when we fight with each other, what happens? In the end, because you can't understand this person, you said, fine, do what you want. Go. I don't care. And that's what happens in life. See, if unity was about language, speaking the same language, then remember that tower in Dubai I talked about in the very beginning, the Burj Khalifa, 828 meters? If language was the main issue that unites people, then that tower would be impossible to build. You know why? Because it was built by 3 major companies. One was Korean, one was Belgium, and one was Arab. But they still made it, the tallest tower in the world. What is the issue we're dealing with? The issue we're dealing with is not the language we speak, but it's the language we speak. You see, the Bible is a very wise book, and this is why everyone is able to learn from it. It's not an outdated book. You know the only thing outdated is? It's our thinking. That's it. It's just our thinking. Our thinking is outdated, so it's so weird that we're talking about language being spread all over the world. But when you read the Bible more and more, what's it all about? Look at 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7. And it's one of the most important verses in the Bible. And it says, but the Lord said to Samuel, read carefully, do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And if you understand this, the truth behind it is, whenever anyone speaks, it's the heart behind it that speaks. Right? What you're saying and what you do comes from your heart. And this is why the thing that's wrong with us is we're always looking at their body language. We're always looking at trying to catch the things they say with their words. See, you said this. No, you said this last time. But you said this. And it's all about just the word itself. When people forget, there is an intent and a heart that's behind everything that people say. The language, during this lockdown time, when you are cooped up, it's already been, 35, 36 days already? It's a long time. It really is. And during this time, if you're married or if you're a family, if you really love each other, shouldn't you be getting closer if you spend more time? Isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Doesn't that kind of make more sense? Than saying, oh, we're family. So the longer we stay with each other, the more we can probably kill each other. That would be crazy if it was that, right? No. If you really are a family, if you're really friends, the more you're together is the closer you should get and the more fun it should be, the deeper the relationship should get. And one of the problems we have is we're looking only at the outer appearance and what people look like and their facial expression. But how many times have you had a bad day and you see someone, you're trying to be more happy and you say, hey, how's it going? They're like, hey man, if you're not going to be sincere, then don't say it. And you're like, oh, I'm just trying to be, but I'm just not going through a good time right now. The one thing people don't see and the one thing we should try to see is the heart. Because once you grab the language of the heart, this is when people are unified, right? People cannot say everything they feel in their heart. And this is why we have to become people that do what? We have to become people that not only just express, but we also have to listen carefully. And this is when we're going to have a great lockdown that gets better and better the longer we're together. Okay? So I really hope that everyone enjoyed today's Lockdown Tuesday. And the question was, what language are you speaking? And that's the question you have to ask yourself when you're talking or when you're about to get into an argument or when you're about to get really angry. What language am I speaking or what language are they speaking? Okay? I hope you guys enjoyed it and you guys will have a wonderful week. But